Hello, dear viewers and subscribers. Welcome again with our new topic of Azure Fundamental Certification AZ900. We have discussed about VM, their types, and container as well in last few sessions. Actually, what is VM? Virtual machine shares dedicated resources to virtualize, where container virtualize the operating system. Okay, now let's think about if we don't need VM or containerization and only need to implement a business logic or to need run a program written in any language like Java, .NET, whatever you are experienced with it. Uh, in the response to an event, then what is the option or solution? Okay, it is Azure function, same as Lambda function provided by Amazon. Let's see definition. Azure function is an event-driven serverless compute option that doesn't require maintaining virtual machine or containers. Okay, if you build an app using VMs or containers, those resources have to be running in order to work your app. Okay, to app to function. With Azure function, an event wakes the function. It's mean whatever you have written function, your program, it's need to wake up in response some events, alleviating the need to keep uh, resources provision when there is no events. Okay, so you can release resources if there is no event and your function will not be running anymore. Let's have a look on this video.
Software developer, you want to spend time doing what matters, building your application. You don't want to spend your time executing tedious, time-consuming tasks like installing an operating system or downloading system updates. The goal of serverless computing is to help you with this by taking care of those tiresome types of server management tasks so that you can focus your effort on getting your application to your customers. So that said, serverless computing is a bit of a misleading name because there are, in fact, servers being used. But what it really means is that the responsibility of managing servers is already handled for you. So, in other words, it's an abstraction of servers so that you can take your mind off of infrastructure concerns and focus them on developer concerns. There are three big benefits of using serverless approach. First, there's no infrastructure management. So that's the first big one. And as a business, this means that you don't have to focus on administrative tasks like installing an operating system. Instead, you simply deploy your code and it automatically runs with high availability. The second benefit is scalability. And as your application grows in popularity, you can rest assured that no matter what, your application will continue working under any workload. In fact, serverless compute can scale from nothing to tens of thousands of requests without any configuration. Finally, the third benefit we want to point out is that you only pay for what you use. You see, serverless computing is event-driven, and that means that resources are only allocated from a direct action. So you are only charged for time it takes to run your code instead of paying for the resources if they're not being used. And when all is said and done, time is money in the business world. And as such, you want to be focusing your time on what matters. Using Azure to support serverless computing through products like Azure Functions, your main job will simply be to upload your code, and you'll automatically get the benefits of infrastructure management and scalability, plus a payment model that will only charge you for what you use.
Okay guys, after watching this video, we have learned more about Azure function that we don't need to do any management, we don't need to work on any infrastructure. We don't need to worry about security implementation and lot of things. We only spend time what matters. If you want something to implement your logic, you run your program. You don't need to do setup. You download their dependencies. You just write your code and you have seen that we just need to set that function to be trigger against an event. So there are a number of events. We will also discuss all those events. And once your function complete your functionality and stop, the, it also deallocate all the resources allocated. So Azure only charges you for the CPU time used while your function runs. Functions can be either stateless or stateful. So this is very awesome feature provided by cloud, even it is AWS or Azure or Google. So let's move forward and learn more about Azure functions with use cases or scenarios. Okay, guys, to understand more in clear picture, let's discuss some use cases or scenarios. Let's suppose you want to do something once your file get upload. Okay, once anyone upload as file, and then you need to execute a function to process that file. Let's suppose processing that file is XML into JSON or JSON to XML, whatever format. Uh, for example, in a retail solution, a partner system can submit product catalog information as files into blob storage. You can use a blob triggered function to validate, transform, and process the files into the main system as they are uploaded. Second scenario is real-time stream and event processing. Let's suppose sometime you need to process real-time data. You want something to be get analysis or record your real-time data for later on usage. Like if you have some Internet of Things devices at home or networking devices, Azure function can process that data in near real time as the hot path, then store it in Cosmos DB for use in analysis purposes. Like you can further review these information on your dashboard and take some actions. Okay, so another is machine learning and AI. Sometimes for machine learning and AI, you get the function to execute. For example, function can connect to an open AI resource to enable text and chat completions. Whenever someone start writing, you have some suggestions for that. It's a function to get the suggestion to complete the information to help the user to write and chat. As you have seen a number of social medias to which helpful for user. Use assistant and leverage embedding and cementing search as well. If someone is going to search on that event, on key press event, you just get those selected characters, and on those you get rest of the suggested criteria for user to help. Okay, let's suppose if we are going to write in YouTube search, you can see on Google as well. If you start writing, you have some suggestion in advance. So there are implemented some function to provide you some notification or suggestion pre-populated for you. Azure function can be executed and run when any scheduled task. Uh, a financial services customer database, for example, might be analyzed for duplicate entries every 15 minutes to avoid multiple communication going out the same customer. So you can implement a function to just take care if there is any database getting exceed with limit, then you can just clean that database, or you can just analyze the duplication entries within a specific period of time. You can schedule a task, and on that pre-configured time period, your function can execute and perform duties implemented. Build a scalable web API. Ooh, great. An HTTP triggered function defines an HTTP endpoint. These endpoints run function code that can connect to other services directly or by using binding extensions. You can compose the endpoints into a web-based API. You can also use HTTP triggered functions endpoints as a webhook integration, such as GitHub webhooks. In this way, you can create functions that process data from GitHub action. This is very clear example to understand what um, Azure function can perform when we uh, build a web API. Another is build a serverless workflow. Serverless workflow mean manageable sequencing, error handling, compensation, fanning out and fanning in, external events correlation. You can see in the diagram. Actually, function is often to compute component in a serverless workflow topology, such as a logic apps workflow. If you have there are a number of metrics, like we have maker, checker, approver metrics. Someone as a maker create a request, then your function will be triggered to perform some processing, to execute some logic. Then it will be available for checker, and once checker approve that request, then another function will trigger on this event to start processing, and so on. Respond to database changes. There are processes where you might need a log, audit, or perform some other operations when stored data changes. Whenever get changes in the data, you want to notify someone. Let's suppose if you have implemented some function, and again that filter criteria, you get execute your function to notify relevant people, to relevant devices, whatever you configure. Function triggers provide a good way to get notified of data changes to initial such an operation. Another is create reliable message systems. This is a scenario where we can utilize and we need a function to be executed whenever we have a, queue system. Let's suppose there are number of messages populated in a queue, and we process that message from the queue, and then our function will process and proceed accordingly. Here in example, you can see request made in a web app, request queued in service bus. A function processes the request. As function triggered on request queued in service bus, it start processing and send it to Postgres DB for further processing, or might be to send a message via mobile, email, whatever channel we have implemented. So for today, guys, it was uh, mm, Azure function, and we have discussed in detail. We have also discussed the use cases as well. So I would like also to mention some events. Number one, HTTP trigger. You can run Azure function on HTTP trigger, timer trigger, blob trigger, queue trigger, Cosmos DB trigger, event hub trigger, service bus trigger, internet of things hub trigger, durable function trigger, event grid trigger, HTTP trigger with OpenAI, Kafka trigger, RabbitMQ trigger, SendGrid, SQL trigger, so on. Okay, so uh, uh, this is for today, and tomorrow we will be discussing our next topic will be and let me look into the list. Our next topic is uh, application hosting option. So we will look into this, how this function. We will describe application hosting option. If you need to host your application on Azure, you might initially turn to a virtual machine or containers. Both VMs and containers provide excellent hosting solutions. So we will be discussing in more detail. So uh, uh, for today, it's enough. Please don't forget to provide your valuable comments and provide your feedback. I would like to request you to also uh, uh, subscribe my channel so that I will be engaged with these kind of activities for you to provide knowledgeable and more information on max this service. Thank you guys. Bye.